The second quarter national crime figures recently released paint a terrifying picture for women and children. Of the 10,516 rapes reported between July and September this year, almost half occurred either at the victim's house or at the home of the perpetrator. There were other details revealed we'll discuss in this interview now. Wise4Afrika Director, Advocate Brenda Madumise joins us now. Good evening and welcome, Advocate Madumise. This confirms a trend in South Africa and globally that many victims know their attacker, a friend, a relative or a neighbour. As an activist who's been working in the space often, what did you think hearing all of this again?
Thanks, Iman, and good evening to your viewers. I think we at a point where the stats are numbing us, and I think as much as it's good for us to get the stats, what we are not getting back as South Africans is what then happens to the investigation and the prosecution of such cases. So we get to be shocked by the sheer number and volume of the incidences of rape and sexual assault, but what we are not seeing is what then is the attention given on proper investigation and prosecution and successful prosecution.
That's a really important point that you raised there. There was some news that was announced as well that following some of the major delays which would capacitate the moving forward of these cases, hopefully even convictions, that the DNA backlog has been cleared. Given that this is the case and what we heard, do you think we're likely to see prosecutions that have been previously delayed go ahead now?
If you look at the DNA backlogs, and we need to extrapolate from that backlog how far that backlog goes. You have had victims of rape who have been sitting and waiting for their matters to be on the roll with the NPA for the last 5 years, others 10 years. So, and some of these victims might not be alive or even have just decided to ignore and not proceed with these cases because they've waited for too long. So I think we can comment and say there's progress, but it came at a cost, that progress, by the way. It came at a cost of many women not seeing justice. It came at the cost of the country being really let down by South African Police Service, let down by the lab facilities. If you understand the reasons why we had this backlog, it's inexcusable and unacceptable, right? So it comes at a cost to all of us because we are not able to prosecute swiftly and promptly these cases, and that's why people get away with these crimes, because they know that there is no urgency in this thing. There's no swiftness to all of this thing. So they know another 5 years, I'll continue and I'll do it again because I might not even be caught because they're still trying to investigate a rape that happened 5 years ago.
What you're saying really speaks to what appears to also be a culture of impunity out there, where we are seeing increasing numbers with regard to these types of assaults and murder as well in the country, because there's this idea that there isn't going to be an investigation, let alone a prosecution. Before we come to the what next, let's just quickly look at the murder results. Those were chilling too. Despite a decrease in the recorded numbers of murders of women this year, I think it was around 11%, children by 7%. The reports of attempted murder were up almost 19% and 23% respectively. Again, we want to see this through your eyes as an activist and somebody who's really aware of the research and the awareness in the space. From your perspective, what is happening here that allows us to have these kinds of numbers? One factor might be what you just said, the levels of impunity, and, we won't get caught, so let's continue to do this. What else are you seeing?
So what we're also seeing, and I think we need to appreciate and acknowledge that we don't have a strong detective capability in the country, right? Let alone that we are not spending our time and resources and efforts in the prevention of some of this gender violence that we see pervasive and prevalent in this country. So we have not put resources into prevention efforts. We have not. And I think that for me is the tragedy and the travesty of it all, that we are just about to get to 16 days of activism, and you'll see the number of events that will be put together, but not addressing the structural drivers of gender-based violence in this country. And as long as we do not address the structural drivers of gender violence in this country, we'll continue, Iman, to talk about the stats that come out and hope that something will give and something will happen. There is a national strategic plan that gives you 6 pillars on what needs to be done and coordination of that work. One of the things that is totally absent in this work is the coordination of all the efforts that are all over in this country. You've got multitude of organizations that are doing good work, but that work is not pulled together, it's not coordinated. So we're not able to see the impact that we are making, if any, right? So even the scale of this problem overwhelms all of us, because on a daily basis you're confronted with these incidences, and you think you are just regressing and not achieving much. So that coordination that is required, which is multi-sectoral, is lacking. And only, I think, a couple of weeks ago, the Gender-Based Violence Council bill was passed in Parliament, which body's responsibility is to coordinate the efforts of GBV interventions in the country.
You paint such a grim picture there, and I guess the only way for us to see through this and past this, Advocate Madumise, is to look at the opportunity then to try and create that network of cooperation between everyone who's working on, the scourge of GBV in South Africa, and perhaps could make up a part of a future conversation. Thank you very much for stopping by tonight. We appreciate it. Wise4Afrika Director, Advocate Brenda Madumise, just talking to us there about the second quarter national crime figures that were recently released. Not a good picture for women and children in South Africa.